Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Spectacular Entrepreneur Show. In today's show, we have Dr. Ivan Misner and Dawn Lyons, who are going to take us through where do you show up as a leader? In business, at home, in your community. So we look forward to your participation on the show, and we also welcome you to comment, raise your hand, or ask questions along the way as well. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to our guest speakers, Dr. Ivan Misner and Dawn Lyons.
Excellent. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Spectacular Entrepreneur Show. Dr. Misner and myself are very excited to be on. Today, we actually get to share with you a lot of information about leadership. And it was actually kind of an interesting collaboration, if you will, with Dr. Misner and I. He had actually sent me all of his kind of list of topics for this particular program, and I didn't look at them. And what I really wanted to do is, as I was getting ready to create all this, really figure out, okay, what would I say? So here we have Dr. Ivan Misner himself giving us topics on leadership. I'm like, okay, well, what would I say my favorite ones are? And interestingly enough, there are a lot that really overlap. And so I was actually kind of thrilled about that idea. And so today, we actually have 6 topics for you. And these 6 topics we're going to cover them kind of from his point as well as from my point and see how they both collaborate together. So I'm going to start it off and just give you a little bit of information about leadership. First and foremost, our intentions today are to really truly show you that leadership skills can be built. They can be created, they can be developed and always improved upon. And so when we think about these, each piece of the puzzle might be something that you can have a chance to work on today. So we also hope that you are taking great notes as well. And I think the interesting thing here is, you might be a fabulous leader in your business. And then where does that show up in your community life? Or where does that show up in your family life as well? And so you might have some pieces that need to be developed more in one area. And so we're going to be helping you kind of think through that and process that today as well. So you are going to get some action items today. Please be writing those down. I think any great leader, constantly is looking for ways to improve and implement new items. So that's just a little bit about what we're going to be covering today. And we are going to have Ivan roll right into topic number 1 for you.
Thanks, Dawn. So topic number 1 is you have to want it. Listen, I've been very lucky in my career. I have gotten to know 2 of the world's leading experts on the topic of leadership. For the first time, I met John Maxwell about a year ago, spent some time, we did some videos together. But I spent a fair amount of time with Warren Bennis. And Warren, 15, 20 years ago, before John, Warren sort of went into semi-retirement. John kind of took the mantle on leadership. But I studied leadership under Dr. Warren Bennis at the University of Southern California. He was on my doctoral committee. I really learned a lot from him, and this was one of the first things that he talked to me about in terms of leadership. I remember one night talking to him, and he said, you want to be a leader? You got to really want it. I mean really want it. If you don't want that leadership role, you will not excel at it. And what I would add to that is that you got to want that leadership role, and that you have to abdicate your ego to the needs of the organization. If your ego enters the room before you do, you're probably not going to be a great leader. And wanting to be in that role really truly makes all of the difference. I've known many people that are in leadership roles, but they didn't want to do it. It wasn't their flame. And guess what? It showed. And so whatever kind of leadership role you're in life, it's got to be something you want. Dawn?
Yeah, and so my take on that was that you really have to be a passionate leader, right? Passion will lead you to the success in any kind of leadership role. So when you think about having to want it, well, it's kind of hard to want something that we're not passionate about. And so having that passion, Ivan, do you feel like you have any points in your career where you know, you were like, okay, do I really want this? And well, wait a second, like what am I passionate about? Like, is this something that keeps me on mission? You feel like you had any of those points in your career?
Let me see. One, I know you can't see me, Don. I'm putting one finger at a time up, and it's like there's many times that that's been the case. And I really think that entrepreneurs are either working in their flame or working in their wax. When they're working in their flame, they're on fire. They're excited. They love what they're doing. They're passionate about it. When they're working in their wax, it takes all their energy away. And so you've got to be working in your passion or in your flame. And so one of the things that I've learned is that as a role or a job became more and more my wax, that it was important to reinvent yourself and to either bring in people that were doing the things that are your wax, or find a different thing to do, because you'll never be great at what you do if you're not passionate about it. That's, I think, absolutely critical. And I have reinvented myself and what I do many times throughout my career.
Excellent. And I kind of feel the same way. I actually wanted to move into kind of an action item here. There was one point, this was very early on, and I had a chance to kind of step up and be kind of a leader in this organization. And I had to have a really serious conversation with myself of, hang on a second, do I really want this? And at that point, I didn't have a lot of tools, if you will, but one of the things that I did was I wrote just a simple pros and cons list. So what would all the pros be if I did step up and I really did want this and I have passion for it? What would all those pros be? How would I be giving value? How would I impact other people? And the cons list, I remember, wasn't as long, but it seemed to be a little bit more, I don't know, like emotional, like, well, people might not like me. People might not like how I lead, right? They may not like my directness or whatever it was. And I felt like those were a little bit more on the emotional side, which could, again, literally be a con. And I just feel like for our audience today, if there's something that you really want and you've got a passion for it, what does your pros and cons list look like? And are you willing to live through the cons list? And so that was one exercise that I did. After I did it, I felt so much more convicted and much more confident that it was an easy action, if you will, to kind of step up and take that leadership role. So that would be my action item.
I know we need to go to the next one, but I want to just add something to what you said, because I love the pros cons list. I mean, I think people don't use that enough. And I want to add one thing to it. And that is, I told my kids this, I told employees this, I've told my spouse this. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get to do what you want to do. And so your list may not be all pros, but if you decide that's the direction you want to go, you have to remember that sometimes you gotta get through that stuff you don't particularly like to get to the stuff you really do like. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do before you get to do what you want to do.
Absolutely, love that. Excellent. All right, well, let's move on to topic number 2. And topic number 2, I call this pour into other people. And I believe that when you're pouring into other people, there's an investment. There's something that you're looking to kind of develop within them as a leader. And when you can help them develop and create and form those leadership roles, you're going to create something that looks completely different. Right? And so when you're pouring into other people and you're looking at, how do I build my staff? How do I build my employees? How do I build this team of people? Well, everybody has a role and everybody has a position in order to kind of create that formation that you're really looking for. So I guess my thing with pouring into others is, how are you currently building other people up? How are you establishing more belief within them so that they believe more in themselves? You know, how are you, if you're leading really well right now, how are you sharing in the glory of what's happening within your organization? You know, so many times as leaders, we can be called out as, you've done something, when in essence, it's really the team of people that you have around you that have done it. So how often are you kind of sharing in that glory, letting other people shine, and realizing that it's not just you as the leader that's accomplished that, but it's the whole team. Now, at one point in my life, I had a mentor, and she actually told me this one thing about what happens when you pour into other people for a long time. And it was a reality that I kind of had to face, and I'm glad that she let me know about it early in my career. The one thing that she said to me was, when you pour into other people, you also have to realize that they might leave. And at first I thought, oh my gosh, I poured so much in and they might leave. Like, that seems a little harsh, right? And in reality, the finishing point on her sentence was, they might leave and you want to be happy for them. Because going right back to the passion is, if you've developed someone to the point of they are passionate and they are leading on their own and they're choosing to kind of move forward and do something different, or even just do something in addition to what's going on with you, we still want to be happy for them because they're doing the right thing for themselves. So that was a little bit of a hard kind of lesson to learn. It has definitely happened to me over the years, and I have learned to love it, because you developing them got them to a place where they got to choose what their passion is and really move forward from there. So Ivan, that was kind of my version of this, and Ivan's version was more about, I care about you, but how can you really show that you care, that you really care? And I like that emphasis on really. So Ivan, can you share with us some of your principles around this topic?
Yes. So listen, I love this. Anyone who's known me for any length of time hears me do the quote that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think one of the best ways to show that you care is to find ways to help people. And another expression I use all the time is, how can I help you? And what I thought might be interesting here is for me to share with you how I first internalized this concept and how incredibly well it worked for me, and then I realized I needed to bring this concept into my life more often. So I understood this expression, how can I help you, but I never really used it until one of my first big management jobs. I was assistant to the president. It was an executive role at a transportation company in Los Angeles. And my first day on the job, the president was called out of the office. He was called to Sacramento to to meet with the state assembly, and so he wasn't there for 3 days. And it was the first time this position ever existed in the company, and so nobody knew what the role was. They thought I was a henchman. They thought I was there. I was being brought in to cut people loose because the company was in trouble. And so I was dropped off in my office. I basically got a tour of the office. They said, here's your office. The bathroom's down the hall. Good luck. You have no idea what your job is. And the boss won't be back for 3 days. And so I was sitting there going, what do I do for 3 days? I better come up with something or I'm going to be in trouble, because he's going to come back and say, what'd you do for 3 days? And this was before mobile phones, and it was hard to connect with people. And so I thought, look, I would just go around the office, meet every manager who was already afraid of me. And instead of saying things that would make them afraid, I would just ask them questions about what they were doing. So tell me about what you're doing. And I know I could see it. They were like, oh my God, he's gonna, I'm gonna be on the chopping block. And then when they were all finished and I really had an idea of what they did, I said, so how can I help you? How can I help you in my role to have you accomplish the things that you want to do? I'm telling you, they were blown away. They were like, oh, really? Well, yeah, there's some things that would be really helpful for this department if we could get in place. And I said, look, I'm new in the job. I can't promise you I can do it, but I've heard you, and I will do everything I can to help guide it in that direction if it's at all possible. And I'm telling you, I laid the groundwork that just blew me away. I built relationships really quickly, and I did it by asking, how can I help you? And to me, that's the best way to show you care. And that's the history on how I now say it very often in my career. Thanks, Don.
Yeah, and I love that. And so as we kind of think about maybe what we could share with the audience for some action items, a couple things that I've done just literally over the past 10 years probably is, it sounds kind of funny or almost like we're back in school or something, but I've been just writing people some notes, like literally people that might be in our training programs or our certifications, and just writing them small notes. And it's funny because years later they will tell me that they still have that note. And that note was just about what I believed about them and what I saw within them. And again, sharing that with people is just a way to show them that you care and that you believe in them as well. There was something else that actually someone did for me that I thought was amazing and really showed that they cared. So, over the course of my career, many dreams and many kind of bucket list items. And, somebody sent me a card with a very specific picture on the front of that card. And it happened to be about lions and all that. And obviously many people know that I want to start a big cat rescue. And it was just the fact that they took the time to get a card that was specific and then share with me, about my desire, and the fact that they listen. I think caring also means that you got to listen as well. Anything else on that, Ivan?
No, I said for years in terms of networking, and I think it applies to leadership as well. A good leader has 2 ears and 1 mouth and should use them proportionately. You really need to listen, certainly listen more than you think, because it's very easy for the leader to always be talking. It's also important to listen. Thanks.
Excellent. All right. And then topic number 3, let's move to that. Showing respect. What does that mean for you, Ivan?
So showing respect is, it begins with, what mom taught us. And I know this is the basics, but I think we forget that. Simple things like saying hello to people. It always amazes me when I meet people in an organization and they say to me, the boss doesn't even say hi. He just kind of walks by. It doesn't even say hello, good morning, whatever. So, I mean, these are the things that we learned in kindergarten, but apply, I think, very much as a leader. Please, thank you, excuse me, just being polite. These are important things. And look, we can all be better at this. I certainly can. But I really strive hard to make a connection with people as often as possible. And this comes back to the ego thing. Your ego shouldn't enter the room before you do. I think humble people don't think less of themselves. They just think of themselves less. And they really try, whenever possible, to make a connection, a personal connection with people. And I think that's an important part of effective leadership. Don?
Yeah, and so my kind of take on this was a spirit of generosity, really giving kind of no matter what. And that spirit of generosity, I feel like when you're generous, other people around you feel good. And when they feel good, they want to be around you more. And when they're around you more, you get to pour into them more. And so everybody's getting kind of that win-win-win scenario. So where are you most generous? Are you most generous with your family, in the community, or in your business? So where can you think about how you can improve on that level of generosity? So exactly what Ivan is saying, some action items might be, how can you kind of show those manners even more? How can you say hello to more people? How can you acknowledge people in a different way? And also just, I think, being in a spirit of generosity also means that we have to be present. And being present allows you to have that generous time with people and those generous kind of listening skills so that you can really hear what they're dealing with or what might be going on in their life at that moment. So for action items, I'd ask you to take a look at where am I most generous? How am I being most respectful? And see if you can apply that to some other areas of your life.
And Don, you asked me to tell the Richard Branson story, which I didn't do, so maybe I'll throw it in here because it fits this so well. The first time I met Branson, at the end, I was on the ground for about a week, and on the last day, he gave a tour of he has a new island next. Nice to have 2 islands. He has a new island next to Necker. And he was giving us a tour of the island, and it was just starting to be developed. And I'll never forget that as we're walking along, there are two guys. There's no buildings on the island except one home, and these two guys are knocking down the building with a sledgehammer. Now, I'm pretty sure, Don, you've never knocked down a wall with a sledgehammer, but I have, and that's like real work. That is real work. That is hard. And these guys, they're knocking, I knocked down a wall. These guys are knocking down a house, a one-story house with a sledgehammer. And I watched as Branson walked down, and he's doing this tour with everybody, and he says, "Hey, will you guys excuse me for just a minute?" And he walks on over to the two guys, and I kind of, gradually moved closer so I could hear what he was saying to them. And here's this, he's a billionaire, and he's talking to these two guys that are basically making minimum wage for the Virgin Islands. And he knew one of them, but the second one he didn't know, and he introduced himself. He said, "Hi, I'm Richard." And he said, "I know this is really hard work. I know this is really, really hard work." And so I just wanted to give you a vision of why you're doing this. He said, "We've got to bring this house down in order to start bringing in some light equipment that can start to kind of dig out this little bay, this little inlet here, so that we can bring in heavy equipment, so that we can build houses, because I'm gonna have a house up here. We're gonna have a little community over here. We're gonna have the association center over here. This is my big vision of what this will all look like, and I can't do any of it until this house is down." And I remember thinking, dang, this guy's a billionaire. He didn't even have to acknowledge them as he walked by. But not only did he acknowledge them, but he showed them incredible respect by giving them his vision of what he was trying to do, so that these guys knew why they were doing the work they were doing, and they weren't just a cog in a wheel. And I think that's really important. Thanks, Don.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I love that story. I've heard you tell that story, and I think it's so powerful. So again, going back to how are you acknowledging people, and giving them that respect for no matter what they're doing in their lives or their livelihoods. So definitely check out the different kind of areas of your life and see where you can have more respect, more acknowledgement, and more generosity there. All right, let's move on to topic number 4. Topic number 4 I called transparency. And transparency, is really about, are you willing to be that open book? Are you really willing to kind of let people see, who you are, where you're coming from, and all of that? And I believe that with transparency comes truth, and with truth comes trust, and trust is an absolute must for leadership. And so transparency is really the thing that can kind of propel this into a position for you, if you will. And so I think the hard thing about transparency is, oh my gosh, somebody's going to actually see my flaws. Oh no, and we all have them. And it's so funny how scared to death we are of other people seeing these flaws. And so when I think about transparency, I think one of the biggest things that we've done, and Ivan, we have stolen this from you, and I do know you're okay with it. One of the things that my husband, Mike Macedonio, and I do is we invite people to our home all the time. It's literally a business practice that we have within Ascentive, and we call it a family dinner. And one of the things that we realized very, very quickly as we started to do this was literally that when people are in your home, they're either going to like you or not like you. And it's going to show up really, really fast. And this is kind of a silly story, but I think it's worth mentioning. We just had some folks here for a 2-day training, and they were in our home the entire 2 days. And we have animals, we're animal people, and one of our animals had an accident. And it's like, I'm taking care of that accident literally during our program, and nobody even blinked an eye. And it was just like, oh yeah, they have animals, that happens. But like for me inside, I was going, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And yet I looked at everybody else and they were moving right on. They were moving right through it. So how willing are you to be an open book? One of these scenarios came up in business a while back, where we were at a point where there's a project that we had, and we were losing a good amount of money on it. And in business, I know better. And yet It was something that we were kind of investing in or willing to do that, but we needed to draw the line. So I had to go to a team of people, there's close to probably 30 people in the room, be completely transparent with our numbers, what was happening, what kind of our opinion was about this, and then kind of lay it out for them as if, what would you guys do? We are in this situation and I'm looking for help. And I have to say that was a pretty vulnerable position to be in, to be able to do that. And yet the responses that we received were so amazing because people were backing us up. They were saying, well, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be losing money on that. So we need to implement these different things. And with that, it wasn't something that was going to change in a day, but they were on board to help us re-engage in a different way. So being transparent actually saved us all of this information and time and knowledge in order to make our business even better. Wasn't easy, but transparency is definitely a key for me within leadership. Now, Ivan, you called this one admitting mistakes.
Yeah, admitting mistakes. And so a number of times I have been working on something and screwed up, and sometimes, if you're running a company and your company is getting bigger and bigger, you make mistakes and it impacts a lot of people. And I remember talking to a friend of mine who was, sort of an informal mentor. He gave me suggestions from time to time. He was older than I was back then, and I was telling him, I'm really worried about making some mistakes because it impacts a lot of people if I really screw up. And I remember he looked over at me really seriously and he said, Ivan, don't worry about making mistakes. You will. Get over it. It's going to happen. And he said, so here's the secret, I believe. This is what he told me. Here's the secret, I believe, to dealing with these. It's two simple things. First, admit that it was a mistake. Admit it.
Yeah.
And second, immediately take action to fix it. He said, look, people respect you when you own up to a mistake that you think you made. Own up to it, but more importantly, focus then on fixing it. So one thing that I've learned over time also is let people vent when you admit it, because oftentimes they get a lot of stuff and you just got to shut up and take it. There's a book I recommend on dealing with difficult conversations. It's called Crucial Conversations. There's 4 co-authors, I forget their names, but Crucial Conversations, great book to talk with people when you are having challenges of some kind or another, particularly if you made a mistake and it needs to be fixed. Don?
Yeah, excellent. And I think one of the things too is mistakes can actually make us stronger. It's kind of this whole thing about, and Ivan, I'm sure this happens with you often, but people kind of put you on top of this pedestal, and standing on this little pedestal, all by yourself can be a very scary thing. And I remember in the past, people would say things to me and I would say, listen, please don't put me on that pedestal because I am going to fall off. And it's kind of what you said, we're going to make mistakes. And yet if mistakes can make us stronger, then that could be a great thing. So one action item that I had for the folks listening today is how can you become unattached? And I don't mean unattached in life, but unattached to what people are going to say about you or how they're going to feel about you if you admit this mistake. Because really, truly, all that's happening is you're being more vulnerable, you're being more truthful. And if you made a mistake, okay, you made a mistake, we're going to, and just like Ivan just said, how quickly can you fix it? How can you bring it back around to where people can see that you're improving and doing things to make it that much better? So that would be a quick action item for you on that. How can you be less attached when making mistakes? All right, and then Ivan, number 5. This is one I know you're passionate about, and this is capacity.
Yeah, I absolutely love this concept, and this is another thing that I learned from someone I consider to be my mentor, Warren Bennis. Unfortunately, Warren passed away a couple of years ago, but I remember I had dinner with him one night, and he talked about a couple of things, and one is a lead up to this concept of adaptive capacity, and that's the idea of contextual intelligence. That it's very important that you understand the context of the thing. You want to be a leader, you can't do a cookie cutter approach to leadership. Not every situation is the same, certainly not all people are the same. So you don't want to be a cookie cutter leader, so you have to understand the context of the challenges you have. That's the first part of it. The second is the adaptive capacity. That means when you understand the context, you have to be prepared to adapt to the challenges. And we were talking about this at dinner, and it was later that evening he was speaking at the University of Laverne. And he was brilliant on the stage, hundreds and hundreds of people in the audience. And we had a new president for the university who hadn't started, but she had met everybody, and she was going to start in like a couple of weeks. And he stood on stage and he said, "What do you guys think about your new university president?" And they were like, "Yeah, we love her. She's fantastic, really excited." He's like, she seems to be really good, isn't she? Everyone's like, "Yeah." I mean, the whole audience he was getting them going. She has immersed herself in the organization, hasn't she? They're like, "Yeah," and she's gonna come on in, and she is fully prepared to take on this role, isn't she? And everyone's like, "Yeah." And he stops. He said, "Hey, if you really believe that, you're all crazy." And it was dead silence. He's like, "It's not going to work that way. Leadership never works that way." He said, "Your president is extremely well prepared, no question about it. She's great. I believe she's going to be a fantastic president. And in her first month, something's going to happen that nobody saw coming. And what will really test her mettle is whether she has the ability to adapt. That is the challenge." And I remember thinking, yeah, okay, I understand the concept, but then, I'm not kidding, 2 weeks. He said a month, 2 weeks into her new presidency, one of the major schools in the university lost accreditation. Well, when that happens, every project on the drawing board gets put to the back burner, and that has to be your number one goal. And that never entered her mind, never entered anybody's mind, that was going to happen. And she got control of that, and within the year, it got reaccredited. But it's a great example of the ability to adapt being so important as a great leader. John?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was funny because when I saw this one on your list, and I looked at some of the stuff that I had written down, again, this goes back to one of my main mentors, literally when I'm 18, 19, 20 years old. And the thing was, work harder on yourself than you do on others. And for me, and how this kind of relates is, if you are learning to adapt in different scenarios as a leader, it's all about you, right? Because it's all about how you react, what you think, what you feel, what you're dealing with in that moment. And when we work harder on ourselves, we're able to control those reactions in a different way. And understanding this fact for me was really, really crucial, because for any of you that know me fairly well, I do like a little bit of control in my life. And I realized very early on I can't control other people, which was a hard lesson to learn as well. And if I can't control other people, then I had better be able to control me. And so one of the action items I would work with folks are, what triggers you as a leader? What are those situations or those scenarios that you get into where you realize you don't have a lot of adaptive capacity? It might be you shut down very, very quickly. So what is that scenario? What is that thing that you're being triggered by? And to really kind of understand and be more aware of that allows you to then work on yourself and work on the stuff that you need to work on, so that when you're in that scenario the next time, you can do exactly what Ivan is talking about, which is being able to adapt, because you've worked harder on you than you have on other people. And so, kind of knowing what triggers you would be an action item, understanding that, being aware about that, and then what can you do differently in that exact situation. Any other comments on that, Ivan?
No, I think understanding what triggers you is really important, or what maybe what you're not strong at. The best answer to me is to surround yourself with people that are better than you at doing certain tasks. And it's really interesting. I've never met anyone that says, oh no, I don't want to do that. But I've met people who don't want to do that. They won't say they want to, they're not like that. They won't say, no, I'm jealous when I see an employee do better than me. And I'll tell you a quick story. You weren't planning on this one, but this is a great story. I was a young man, 22 years old. I was at it was a life insurance dinner. My significant other at the time was in life insurance. And I guess I was 23 or 24, but I was young. And I'm at this dinner, and for some crazy reason, they sat me next to the president of the insurance company. I don't know why they sat this 20-something-year-old kid next to the president. And I remember I learned a great lesson about surrounding yourself with people that are better than you. The entire dinner, they were making a big deal out of the fact that one of the insurance agents made more money than the president. It was a big deal. Everybody was always talking about it. And at one point, when there was no one on stage, I leaned over to the president. I said, does it make you uncomfortable at all that you got an employee who makes more money than you do? And I'll never forget, he looked at me and he said, I am ecstatic he makes more money than I do. Because if I could only create or develop or help 3 or 4 more people like that, I'm going to make a lot more money. Because my compensation is based on the success of the company. And so I need more people like that. So no, it doesn't bother me at all that he makes more money than me. I wouldn't begrudge him that at all. And that was an awesome lesson for a 20-something-year-old to learn.
Absolutely. That's a good one to learn very, very early on. All right, let's move on to topic number 6. Topic number 6 is lead by vision, right? Really have that visionary leadership skill. And for me, I'm super, super passionate about vision because I really want people to achieve what their life purpose is and all of that. So when you think about leading by vision, there's a couple things to know. When you lead by vision, it will attract other people to you. It will unite people for a very specific cause or mission. And at the same point, it also can be a little bit challenging for people. So it kind of keeps people in that moving forward, improving kind of state of mind. And so when you lead by vision, a couple things to note is, number one, what is your vision, right? We have to start there. Do you have a vision? And then the action item, once you have that vision, and it really kind of, it gives you those goosebumps that we all want to have when we talk about our vision. When you have that, how often are you sharing it? And who are you sharing it with? I literally will put bits and pieces of my vision into my bio so that when I'm speaking in front of different audiences, people will come up to me at the end and say, oh my gosh, I had no idea that you wanted to start a big cat rescue. And it's just a different thing that we get to talk about, but for whatever reason, they were attracted to that, and it makes a leader more approachable, because now if we have something kind of in common or we're intrigued by where your vision is going, we can talk to you about that. And so leading by vision, getting that buy-in from other people is super important, especially if you have a large organization and people want to know where they're going, especially when they're coming along with you. Now, Ivan, you called this one focus on solutions, right? So we can all move forward if we're focusing on solutions. So share with us a little bit about that.
I did, but if I could just get back to the lead by vision thing just briefly. Yeah. I think that this visionary leadership is so important, and what we get caught up in when we're trying to be a leader is we get caught up in being a manager instead of a leader. And so I've got a great metaphor. At least I think it's a great metaphor. You guys have heard me do it. It was probably bad timing under who was in the audience, but I think leadership is not about, let's say your job is to build a road through a forest. Your job as a leader is not to be hacking away at the trees and just, create the path. And people think that leadership is, okay, so, I got to cut the trees. I have to have somebody who gets the logs, and we need trucks coming in, and we need catering. That's not leadership, that's management. Here's the role of a leader. The leader in an organization needs to climb the tallest tree in the area, look out over the horizon, and say to everyone, that way. That's the direction we're going to go, and here's why. And that's really the role of a great leader, is to have that vision like you're talking about. Now, Don, you're talking about can we all move forward? We can all move forward, but you got to focus on solutions. I think that organizations and leaders who focus on problems become an expert at problems. You really want to be successful and you want to be a great leader, focus on solutions and get your people to focus on solutions and not be obsessed with the problems. You've got to understand the problems, but then you got to work towards creating solutions. Don?
Yeah, perfect. So very quick action items for you would be get your vision, right? Share your vision often. Figure out any problems that you may be having, and this could, again, be in your family, in your community, or in your business. Figure out those problems, and then what were the easiest solutions to be able to fix those, and then let people know that you're going to go do those things. And again, that will help attract more people to you so that you have that visionary leadership going on within your family, your life, or your business.
I've got a book that I recommend here as well for the solutions focus, and it's called Solutions Focus. Solutions Focus. It's by Dr. Mark McCurgow. He's a good friend of mine, and it's an excellent book on focusing on the solutions, not the problems.
Excellent. So if we do a quick recap here, so topic number one was, you want to have it. You want to have that passion for that success, and you have to want to be a leader. So some action items on that might be to write out that pros or cons list for you. Topic number two was pouring into others, right? How are you investing in them? How are you really showing that they care, right? And who are you going to invest in? That could be your action item. What if you just pick 2 people to invest in more leaving this webinar today, right? And number 3 was showing respect. Really have those minding your manners, I guess, kind of things in place so that people feel acknowledged and they feel respectful, or they feel that you have that spirit of generosity. And then we've got topic number 4. Ivan, you want to share those ones? Ivan,
you seem to have unmuted.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Topic number 4 is transparency, and if you want to really be a great leader, you've got to be transparent with people and candid with them, and you got to admit mistakes with them as well.
Yeah. You got topic number 5?
Absolutely. Topic number 5, one of my favorites, the adaptive capacity, the ability to adapt based on the contextual intelligence. This is one of the things that is not taught much in leadership skill training or leadership training, and it's, I think, one of the most important ones. It's something that I learned directly from Warren Bennett.
And lastly, number 6.
Lead by vision. Lead by vision, I think that's so critical, and the solutions focus. Leadership is not about management. Management's an element of it, but leadership is about leading people. I'll never forget, I had my doctoral degree at USC, and one of the people that I had in my leadership course was a captain in the Army, and it was taught by a brigadier general, this class. And I'll never forget one of the things that he said. We really try to teach, in officer training, we try to teach leadership, not management. So that when it comes time for the soldiers to take a hill, you don't say, okay, let's huddle up and talk about what we're going to do. No, you stand on the top of that hill and you say, that way, this is where we're going, and everyone follows. He said that's leadership, and that was a kind of an eye-opener to me, that management's definitely different than leadership. Don?
Yeah, excellent. So if we were to really kind of close this out, our hope is that you take some kind of an action right? And really get out there to improve your skills. Again, personally, I believe that leadership is a development process. And as soon as you learn one skill, you can move on to another. I hope that we've given you some pieces here that you can learn from today. And Ivan, would you like to close us out?
Yeah, I would love to do that. Let me close out with one last quick story. Another thing, I learned so much from Warren Bennis. One of the things I learned, he just tore me apart in my doctoral orals, just ripped me up. He asked me a question. He said, so what are the characteristics of a great leader? And I named off all these characteristics. And he said, BS, that's just not accurate at all. I'm like, what? He's like, do you know, and then he gave the exact opposite list of characteristics. He said, do you know any leaders like that? And I said, well, yeah. He said, so the characteristics really aren't relevant, are they? I'm like, I hadn't thought about that. You can have great leaders who have completely different skill sets, but can be a great leader. And you can be a great leader by doing the kinds of things that we're talking about here. It doesn't matter if you're outgoing or quiet. It doesn't matter if if you're very analytical or big picture. You can be a great leader by doing many of the kinds of things that we're talking about here. The last being improving your skills. You've got to be focusing on how to improve your ability to be an effective leader. That's it, done.
Excellent. That's all I have for you. I'm not sure if Nanette is back on. Nanette, do we have any questions or?
Nanette's there, but she can't speak. Mike, you're welcome to jump in, or
Yes.
we can hand it over. I think this is where we open it up.
We will. We'll be ending this call, but Ivan, Dawn, thank you. I think those are tremendous topics on this topic of leadership. And as I'm listening to this, I'm actually recalling that this is worth listening to again. And so it is recorded, but there's a great topics, great stories supporting those topics. For those that are on this webinar, our next Spectacular Entrepreneur Show will be in October, and we will be going over mastering your calendar. And Ivan will be sharing some of his insights on mastering his calendar. So thank you again to our host, Nanette. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Dawn. And thank you for everyone who's participated on the show.